Life imitates art. At least, that's what I've always been told. And I recently found it to be true. This video is going to be about how I was inspired by the painting called The Night of the Flowers to make my own flower hat in the likeness of the flower fairies from the painting, which then led me to Paris to see the painting in person and ended with me and my friends dancing around an actual knight in shining armor. I would love to take you along, so I'm going to go back to the beginning when this was all just a seedling of an idea. I have been seeing everyone wearing these adorable, what looks like felted flower hats, and I really wanted to make my own. So I drew up some sketches to wrap my head around the project and to decide on what type of design I wanted the hat to be, based on different types of flowers and different shapes that I thought would be cute. But then I became absolutely enamored with the Night of Flowers painting, and in the painting all of these flower fairies or flower nymphs are wearing different flowers on their head. There was one flower hat in particular that I just really loved the colors of and I thought was really pretty, its shape and everything. So I decided to kind of scrap my drawings and try and make one as close to that hat as possible. However, there were a few drawings that I did that were kind of similar to it. I would say this one and this one were probably the closest to the one in the painting. One of the things that really grasped me about the painting is the way the artist's use of color. He painted the reflections in the knight's armor and just made it look so shiny, and it reflected the colors of all of the fairies. I don't know exactly what kind of flower that it was based off of, so if anyone has any idea or a guess, please let me know in the comments. I thought maybe some kind of lily, but I'm not sure. For this project, I am going to be using white felt, and I start by cutting out petal shapes for the number of petals I want on the hat. While cutting, fold the fabric in half so we end up with double the amount of petals. Next, I take this extra long and fluffy pipe cleaner and regular wire, and I will twist those two together. This is important because the fibers of the pipe cleaner will help the glue stick to the fibers of the felt, but the pipe cleaner isn't quite strong enough on its own, so we add the secondary wire to give it a little extra rigidity. With the pipe cleaner folded in half, it is going to end up being the wire frame inside of the petals, and the petals will be sandwiched around the wire. Repeat the steps until there is enough to fit all of the petals that we cut out earlier. Attach the pipe cleaner wires together so we get this funky little octopus-like shape, and we do that by twisting the wires together at the center. I want this to be mostly a no-sew project, so I just hot glue the petal pieces and pipe cleaners together until they are all covered. Then we repeat those steps to make a smaller version to be the stem on top. I glued the smaller stem to the top, but I also added a few strategic hand stitches just to make sure everything was locked in place. Now it is time for me to shape up the petals and give them a little extra texture around the edges before we start painting. Whenever I paint fabric projects like this, I like to do so in a watercolor-like style by using acrylic paint and mixing it with water, and that causes the colors to blend together and bleed a little, and it also keeps the paint from drying too hard and crunchy. Painting is always one of my favorite parts of projects like this because it's this stage when everything starts to come together and come alive, and I can really just lose myself in that. This project all started simply because I wanted a flower hat, But upon discovering the Night of the Flowers painting, it led to another obsession within itself. It was painted in 1894 by Georges Roche-Gros, based on Arthurian legends and the Knights of the Round Table, specifically Percival. The painting depicts Percival as he is on his quest to find the Holy Grail, but he soon finds himself in an enchanted garden surrounded by flower maidens. Coincidentally, when I was working on this project, I was planning a trip to France for a creative retreat. I'll talk more about that later, but I wanted to bring the finished hat with me. I've been really into Knightcore, Lady Knights, pre-Raphaelites, and anything medieval, as well as being forever obsessed with fairies and folklore, so that's probably why the painting speaks to me so much, on top of the beautiful, vibrant colors used in the painting. In my last video, I talked about some of the books that I had been reading that were on theme for the project, and some people liked that, so I thought I'd do that again. And a fantasy book that I recently absolutely fell in love with is The Queens of Innis Lear and the sequel Lady Hotspur. It is an epic tale of lady knights and magic and adventures, and it also has a lot of queer representation, and I would definitely recommend it if you also love those things. I am almost finished with the hat at this point, but I wanted to sew on some pearlescent beaded details that kind of remind me of morning dewdrops on a flower. And lastly, I just need to sew on some ribbons onto the underside so I can tie it around my head, and then it will all be complete. Here I am packing my bags for France, and I think Ari wants to come with me. Hi Ari! I love you! It is such a surreal feeling to stand in front of a painting that you've admired only ever digitally. I was just trying to take it all in, the colors, the composition, the brushstrokes, and the details. It was honestly hard for me to peel away. But it was soon time for me to hop onto a train and head to the retreat in the French countryside. And did I mention that the retreat was at a chateau? I put together this look that I thought would match my flower hat. It's what I'm imagining a little fairy prince might wear. I also might have taken a little inspiration from Cicely Mary Barker's flower fairy paintings. And at the retreat, we were told to dress in pastel princess-like outfits for a photo shoot, but they surprised us by bringing out an actual knight in shining armor, which honestly I was losing my mind over because only days before was when I was standing in front of the Night of the Flowers painting. So this really felt like the ultimate conclusion to my theme, Life Imitates Art.